continue with this positive distinction that Turkey has positioned itself, not only, of course, our country, but also OECD also articulates that our economy grew with a very positive performance throughout the year and preserved that position in the third quarter. And the fact that our economy has come to this position by preserving such a growth rate, of course, maybe stunned many who were waiting like hungry wolves, but not us, of course. We were not surprised. We already had received the signals of that such positive growth in the second quarter, and now we have the third quarter results, and by the end of the year we will also observe the same. In terms of our performance, what we concentrate on, as I always reiterate, is that by way of reducing interest rates, we should concentrate on investment, production, employment, export, and growth. And these four main pillars will be bringing about growth for us all. Our forecast is that it will be minimum 10, however, it might go over 10%, and during some private meetings with our friends, they expressed that this ratio could go over even 10%, and this is what they share, and I do not find it indeed surprising, and we will be seeing that in the reflection of inflation rates as well. As I always reiterate, interest rates are the reasons, while the inflation rates are the outcomes, and we are reducing those rates, and we will see the inflation rates falling as well.
So we are growing, but why are we growing? This is also very important, and there was a video you shared at your group's meeting, and there were the mentions that brought about growth. So let's have a look at the video.
We made all these things back again.
So as we watch this video, let us bring in our diplomatic correspondent, Andrew Hopkins, who joins us from Ankara. So, Andrew, President Erdoğan discussing Turkey's economy, and it has done very well compared to other countries.
Yes, that's right. Just some new figures today released in the third quarter this year, 7%. Also, the second quarter of this year, over 20%, which when you think about what the world was like just last year, it was many parts of the world in full lockdown because of the COVID coronavirus. That's why there's such a high increase there. But the Turkish economy facing a number of challenges at the moment as well. Inflation is at about 20%. The Turkish lira, the national currency, has devalued against the dollar about 30% since September, and also the prices of everyday goods in the shops has gone up quite substantially in the last few weeks. And we've heard from the Turkish president there already talking about how he thinks this problem should be dealt with. And what he is saying is that there should be more investment, there should be a concentration on exports, and this will help to bring prices down. It will help to bring down unemployment as well, which is about 12% in Turkey at the moment. And the main thing that he is saying is that interest rates should be brought down as well to 5%, which is the government's target at the moment. Interest rates in Turkey are at about 15% now, but that, for some of his critics and some other economists, they are saying it's the wrong way of going about it. They should be increasing interest rates, and that is what all the kind of fuss or the controversy is about. And the Turkish president there in that interview really not backing down at all on his statements in recent weeks, recent months, about what he thinks is the best way for the Turkish economy going forward. And I think we're going to find out in the next few weeks and months what the result of all this is as this policy sort of comes into effect, and how that affects the economy as Turkey moves forward.
Yeah, it's obviously been a very difficult period because of COVID, and that COVID restrictions. Andrew, thank you very much for that. Let's go back to
watch what you have achieved.
So after this resonating video, we also wanted to deliver it through our channels. So Mr. Okan Müderrisoğlu would like to continue with his questions.
Last week we watched in the group meeting, and this was indeed discussed a lot. This was a major challenging, but we are facing a new challenge in economy, even though this was an important confrontation. In terms of the owners of the classic economic theory, you are putting forward an important assertion. You are claiming that there is no single correct model, and Turkey is going to continue with a different software. And this is also expressing an important backing by your strong stance, but we're also going through an important time period. We still have the aftershocks of the pandemic, and the system is being shaped through the foreign exchange attacks. The global system is changing, and a similar picture in Turkey, and we're approaching the elections. And in such a situation, in terms of the real industry, in terms of the producers, in order to make this process manageable, do you have a package or do you have a specific project, especially for employment and production?
Is it not possible for us not to have such a program? Of course we do have. And during the critical period of the pandemic as well, we had prepared a package, and now we have two packages. One is a package to support additional employment, and the other one is the support package, which is import-oriented for export substitution. Just like we have supported all sections of our society for over the past 19 years and have stood with every member of our nation, in this period as well, we will not leave anybody alone, neither will we neglect anyone. Because in this process we came to office and we said our party is the party of the nation, and this is how we marched on our path. If you ask me what the package for additional employment is, it is going to address the SMEs, in particular the companies which have employees less than 50. For every new job, up to 100,000 liras, with the credit guarantee fund lines, we will facilitate the process to access credit lines. And the enterprises who are willing to benefit from that, up to 12 months, will have lower credit interest rates. This way, credits, loans, free of interest rates will be presented to many enterprises, and it will ensure that more than 11,000 companies, enterprises, will benefit from a loan which will exceed the figure of 10 billion liras. And we also have another package for substitution, which will pave the way for investments of production and export. We have been supporting such investments, and we will continue to support, especially the third, fourth, fifth, and the sixth incentive regions, and the cities where those regions are located will be supported, and the enterprises, entrepreneurs who have plans will receive good news. The Treasury-supported credit guarantee fund will facilitate up to 7 points of interest rates, so that those enterprises will be able to invest more. Totally, this package of initiatives will correspond to more than 11 billion liras. and our enterprises, our entrepreneurs will benefit from that. May it be auspicious for all of
Let's
them.
continue with you, Ms. Bozdoğan.
As we look at the agenda, we see economy. That's on the top ranks at the moment. So today we're going to ask many questions on economy. Well, you talked about the performance related with economy, but my first question is as follows. When we have a look at the history of Turkish Republic, the model that we've implemented up to date was that it was only in the rhetoric, in the words, but there was not a practice indeed. So this is why you constitute an unprecedented model here. You always prioritize employment and you place great emphasis on low interest rates. And together with the recent times, maybe a need has come to the fore. We want to understand this model. We want to understand what it really entails. When we have a look at it in classic terms, it doesn't necessarily aim to make the rich richer. It basically would like to disseminate the sources and the wealth to all the segments of society. How would you like to describe this model?
Ms. Betul, we first have to believe in that. The model that makes rich even richer is interest rates. And interest rates make the rich richer and the poor even poorer. And whenever Turkey took steps to step out of the vicious circle of interest rates, we encountered all the time a manipulative pressure done through foreign exchange. The fact that some want to push Turkey into that circle was averted by us, and we will never allow that. What we express here is that these speculations about interest rates and FX rates are what we are facing, and only we can prevent that. For high interest rate incomes, there are global funds that step into the country. This is called hot money, and this hot money can temporarily decrease FX rates. However, this is not ideal for us. After a certain time, the high interest income is generated, and then the FX rates will go higher. And every time you have to apply higher interest rates to decrease the foreign exchange rates. And if done regularly, this renders economy dependent, and it is a vicious circle, which is what we have been experiencing right now. This is how we were pushed into the foreign exchange rate-oriented high interest rate vicious circles, and we say that we will not allow that, and we will not allow high interests to prevent investments, and we will not allow those people to drive away growth, and we will stand for that. Those who do not want this plot to be disrupted want to push us back into this game of foreign exchange rates, but those within the country and in the globe will not achieve in that. There's this thesis called cost inflation. Isn't this the problem? The industrialists, investors, what is the biggest obstacle that stands in front of them? It is the cost inflation. The higher the costs are, the lower the power for investment is. However, on the very contrary, we want to increase the power of investment, and then in the international export, then those investors will start their race on stronger grounds. The main indicators of Turkey in fundamental economy are very strong. However, outside there are some who try to make it look like they are not. And Okan Bey is very much interested in that field. However, our indicators are very strong, and our country is now at the point of breaking that vicious circle, and there is no way back from it. We will not go back from that. In the post-pandemic period has speeded up this process in terms of the balance or equilibrium established in the world. And do we have that only in our country? No. Do we have it in the US? Yes. In the UK, in Germany? Yes. And even more recently in the Netherlands. Do we have that? All of them are struggling in that significant vicious circle. And as Turkey, to a great extent, we have ridden ourselves from that. The foreign investors, for the foreign investors who trust in Turkey, now it's about time to invest. And important foreign investors who have been observing that opportunity to seize in Turkey have already started acting, as we observe. Those who invest in Turkey in long term have always won, and they will. Very recently, in Ceyhan, for example, a very large facility of chemical products with a investment cost of 1.7 billion will come operational, and we laid the grounds for that, and it will contribute very positively to employment rates and will at the same time reduce our current account deficit. This is exactly that. In Ceyhan, in other regions also, we have some other developments as some follow. This is what we follow as well.
Well, for sure, this game of interest rates and inflation, the FX rates, you've talked about that in detail, and you've commented on it right now.
And as you know, and there could be some who find it odd, but as an NGO that is the representative of the capital in the world now starts or attempts to stand against that. However, we tell them if you are willing to invest, go ahead, and the public banks are ready to support. The concern here is not the FX circle, vicious circle. However, we are looking for investors that do trust in us. Doesn't matter who they are, because with the new economy model, we have been pushing away the model that will attract high amounts of hot money, but we will be supporting the real investors, and this is why I say the managers of the public banks that you will not be in a race with the private banks in terms of interest rates. On the contrary, with lower interest rates on loans, you will encourage our investors, make sure they invest. And another expectation from you, I say to them, is that you will help increase employment rates. And with that, production rates. And with production, we will be in a race. You will be in a race in terms of export with the global capital. In export, we are in a very good position, a very good position. We have now around $210, $215 billion worth of export volume, and by the end of the year, it will even exceed 220. This is a record for Turkey.
And I'd like to add one thing very briefly, because this is something that requires a lot of effort, but this is going to be something that will help Turkey attain growth, even higher rates of growth. But don't you think it's a risk for other politicians? When we have a look at the prime ministers preceding you, such a model was never really tried and tested. It was only in the words that they uttered.
Of course, everybody has their own peculiar ways of doing things, and in my close circle, many also did not defend such an approach. When we said we would be removing those extra 6 zeros off of our banknotes, some objected. And even those who were close to me, even though he said he was not going to, he established, he founded a political party himself, and he said, we will be removing those 6 zeros off of our banknotes, our currency. And now he's boasting about that. I was serving as the Prime Minister of the country, and I gave him instructions, and we did that. And now he is indeed bragging about that. However, you were a minister serving under my government, and you did that with my instructions. This is how we covered path. We are going to be an economy that generates FX and attains its economic goals. Not with short-term foreign exchange borrowed, but as I said before, export, tourism, and other service incomes can make a foreign currency generation possible. We in the past saw that high rates would not help. Pressuring the FX rates and rendering export cheap is not a way to wage a struggle against such high FX rates. We have a model that will make the structural inflation permanent. And whenever such things happened, we entered into a spiral when the global inflation rates and FX rates did not allow anything. However, we end that. The import-to-export ratio has now come to stand at 90% as of today. This is what matters. And in tourism as well, we are in a very rapid recovery process. This is what we are supposed to have. And once you have such a recovery in the services industry, then in this season, for example, we have a significant influx, if you will, of tourists coming to Turkey from Russia, and they're very happy. In Antalya, for example, in this very season, we see that many Russian tourists visit, and Antalya attracts a lot of tourists. We, of course, have a great solidarity with Russia, with Mr. Putin as well, and this also translates into that much of high visits from Russia. And we also have improved our current deficit account, and we have we will even have a current account surplus by the end of the year, as the indicators show.
Let's continue with you,
You
Mr.
said
Kardas.
the following, and I would like to ask about that. We are not going to shrink our country in a way that the mandate defending economists wish, and condemn our people to poverty. This is a very important remark, and with that we are also you are also inviting the nation to an independence war in terms of economy. There was a recent National Security Council meeting recently, and a declaration came out of it, and this way economy was mentioned in a national security Security Council decision for the first time. So I would like to ask about the significance for national security. Why do you see such operations as a threat to national security?
First things first, we have to underline one fact. Economic security is a part of national security. And as I said before, Turkish economy is strong. Our macro indicators, as well as our recent economic performance, stand very solid. And in the light of these realities, the recent fluctuations in the FX rates are not related with economic vulnerability. There are those who understand that and those who do not. However, investment, production, employment, and export and policies therewith will make our country ever growing and stronger, and a country which follows its own independent policies. Of course, some are disturbed by that. Just imagine the person chairing the main opposition party is seriously disturbed by that. He says the Board of National Security is not a place where such topics would be raised. Indeed, this person has not grasped the meaning of politics. He does not know about politics. He still remains at the same place as he was in the past. The mindset that he had when he chaired the Social Security institution, which he made go bankrupt. Were you not the person who chaired the institution when the people lost their lives at hospitals and morgues? And during those times, I also remember the late Sabashai's TV program. Mr. Kemal was on that show, and he was mocking even with that fact. However, the journalist was asking him questions if he were not the chairperson, the president of the institution, and he was changing the subject. And at this very moment, he stands in the same place. He has not changed even slightly. So if we are not going to talk about these subjects in the National Security Board, then where? It is the place where we go down into the very sensitive details about those issues. And one fact is to be underlined again: Turkey is not the Turkey of the old times. Over the finance markets, the economic threats that some do throw at us will never be taken into account. Our economic strength, our economic potential has the capability to tackle all such problems, and very easily we can stand against such things. With perception operations or foreign currency manipulations, it is not possible to dazzle us or to prevent us from doing what we have to do. And we have the power and the resoluteness, as we have reaffirmed at our National Security Board meeting, and we then made our statements accordingly.
Mr. President, the leader of CHP, Kılıçdaroğlu, has a video from 2016. Let's watch this, and then we will ask you some questions about that. It's from 2016.
President Erdoğan talking about the economy there, inflation rates, foreign investment. Let's bring in TRT World's editor-at-large, Yusuf Erim, who's in Istanbul. Lots of questions about the Turkish economy there, Yusuf. But the end point, Mr. Erdoğan making, that Turkey has bucked the trend.
We saw the Turkish president talking a lot about the economy in this interview, and one of the main topics he touched upon was economic security being part of national security. And when we've seen previous comments by the Turkish president, he talked about this being a struggle for economic liberation. And now we're seeing in the interview Turkish president talking about low interest rates, and he's wanting to support investments in manufacturing and also investments supporting exports as well. So this is a very important part of his concentration.
We saw the statements of Mr. Kılıçdaroğlu. It is from a speech from back in 2016. Mr. Müderrisoğlu, let's continue with you.
Let's continue with the interest rates, because the discourse about interest rate does not only belong to 5 years ago. CHP and other opposition parties and some economists have similar remarks. And once the interest rate starts going down, they question why there is this decrease of interest rates and that it shouldn't have been done. They always claim this assertion, and there is always the interest rate, exchange rate plot. Currently, the exchange rate is going up, and how and when to break the pressure of the exchange rate? Do you have a perspective on that? And secondly, when we talk about interest rate, there is economic as well as humanitarian and creed aspects, but we usually discuss the economic aspect of it, but you look at it as a whole. But at the end of the day, the opposition party always objects and criticizes your stance about the interest rate being down. Okay, we understand the conflicts of the opposition parties, it's about them, but what would your message be to a regular citizen?
As we said before, interest rates would make the rich even richer and the poor poorer. The everyday citizens of this country, of my country, would suffocate under such hiking interest rates. And the opposition party leader says, we will support it if you lower the rates. I do not say the otherwise, but do I have the authority to make these decisions on my own? I do not. However, if you pay close attention, right all the way from the beginning, I said to the relevant authorities that they were independent. And he himself, the opposition leader, claimed that the central bank was not independent. However, if the central bank was not independent, when you asked for an appointment from them, did Tayyip Erdoğan stood in your way? We know what statements you made after your appointment with the governor of the central bank. There is also an ethical dimension to all of this. After your meeting, your appointment with the central bank, will you be able to make such statements that will wear off the reputation of the central bank? However, he did that, and he repeated these right from 2016 on, and the person who stands with him is himself a supporter of interest rates, and he himself never knows of such practices indeed. However, we very frankly say, until the elections, we will see that the low interest rates will fall significantly, and the triggering effects will be very positively improved related with lower interest rates. This goes the same for inflation. And I repeat the thesis. I say inflation is the cause and interest rates are the results, and we will see that. We will see that unfolding with the outcomes in tow. Can I give a certain date
You're
for that?
already
No, I
saying
can't.
towards the elections.
However, this will be the process. But when it comes to the objections of the opposition party to lower the interest rates, show that we're on the right path. And now they are at the same point too. However, I do not know if they will change opinions all of a sudden. I do not know, but even if they do or not, I defend my thesis. And we know the interest rates in the world and the global economy and the inflation in the world. It's obvious. And when saying so, I do say so by taking into account the capital and the rates in the world. Let's take a look at the interest rates in Europe and the US. and also the inflation rates. When you take a look at the inflation rates and also the interest rates in those countries, you will say that there are high interest rates and inflation figures that are even not comparable to ours. However, when you look at the figures, you see that inflation is lower in their countries, and the interest rates also are lower. However, in the global economies, inflation rates that hike, and this goes the same for inflation. And now we are at a very high position that is not even comparable to them. And now we're at a point of decreasing those rates, and hopefully with this we will be taking some new steps forward. However, what matters for us is that we have to liberate our country from this high interest rate spiral. Considering the G7 countries, it is 4.9 for the US and 6.6 for the UK. And for Turkey, the third quarter growth rate is 7.4. In Russia, it is 4.3. Likewise, in China, it is 4.9. And we have differentiated from them all. We are in a very good position, and hopefully by the end of the year, we will even differentiate ourselves further from them and be in a better position. However, what matters for us is to support and increase the volume of investment and production, local production.
Okay, so at this point, a lot of challenging times were overcome through the collaboration between the public and the state. So let's see what our citizens are saying.
Once again, let's turn to TRT World's editor-at-large, Yusuf Erim, who's in Istanbul for us. So just a quick recap, Yusuf, on what the conversation has been so far.
Well, the conversation's been concentrated on the economy, and the Turkish president has called this economic transformation a struggle for the economic liberation of Turkey, and he's talking about economic security being part of national security. Now, he talked about two economic support packages and wanting to support manufacturing investments and exports as well, and talked about a 10 billion lira low-interest credit package made available to over 11,000 companies, and that long-term investments are very, very necessary, especially from foreign investors as well. And he wants to shift the attention of attracting hot money with high interest rates to attracting smart money with a more sound investment environment going forward.
Thank you, Yusuf. Let's return to Ankara and the interview with Mr. President Erdoğan.
So these citizens have made statements that portray their confidence. So what do you think? How do you think this confidence was created among the citizens?
Our citizens are way ahead of those who claim they know what this business is. Our citizens know it much better, and they know what will bring about benefits and what will take away. These high interest rates, will they increase the costs or decrease? They would make the costs increase because these interest rates depend on costs. And when this is the case, the small shop owners, when they have to produce, they will have to reflect such high cost to the products they're producing, and the bill then will be paid by the citizens, because the small shop owners or the craftsmen will not pay that extra amount themselves, but they will have to take that from the citizens. And this is what the interest inflation is, and we have to reverse that. completely, and that's why our target is to make sure that our citizens are relieved with lower interest rates. And this goes the same for our small shop owners and craftsmen, artisans. And we have to make sure that a higher investment is made. And for that, we say to our small shop owners that now you have an ability to take a lower interest rate applied credit lines. Take that, make sure you employ more people, be in the circle of production, and then grow more. This is the action we have taken. We believe in that. We have full confidence for that. And the result, the outcome we will achieve is very clear.
After India, you've replied to questions in an interview, and you basically made warnings there because, like, there may be people who basically make use of that, take advantage of that. Is there a chance to bring in more severe sanctions for that?
This is where the problem lies. Stockpiling is a matter for punitive sanctions. We, one way or another, have to regulate that and apply stronger punitive sanctions against stockpiling. Stockpiling is indeed something that has no place in our religion as well. Stockpiling, some call it speculative movements or actions, but it is theft. No way around it. And about orders, we gave instructions to our relevant ministers and said that you will take the necessary actions. Only auditing will not suffice. If necessary, you will make a legal regulation, identify those who practice excessive pricing and extortion. And once you identify those who do engage in stockpiling, then we can practice with the necessary sanctions. And this is not only for some basic products such as onions or potatoes, but this goes the same for older products. Those who opt for stockpiling and disrupt the regular order of the market will never be allowed, and we have to opt for certain legal regulations.
With you, Mr. Kardas.
You have talked about inflation, but global inflation, of course, is not only in Turkey because of the pandemic. Inflation has gone up, and there's an serious increase in raw material prices as well. I have two in front of me. One of them is iron ore. It was $106 in June. In January, in June, it has gone about 200, which is a 100% increase in international markets. Glass is another important raw material. In January, it was $40, but in July, it has reached $107. Of course, rubber, plastic, or all other raw materials, they also observe a serious increase, unprecedented figures. So there's high figures all over the world. What is Turkey? How is Turkey's fight against inflation currently?
Beyond the fight, we have another situation we have to address. It is not only to do with the increasing prices. You also have the materials supplied. You have the products, the materials supplied, and then you can sell them at high prices. However, right now, you cannot have the products, such materials supplied even. Now, you talked about iron ore. This way or another, we have iron ore too. But do we have the amount we desire? No. Then you have to go for import. And when you step in import area, you will see those extreme prices. Now we're talking about glass. From flat glass to windshields, there are significant problems in supply. As regards that, matter, we also have some producing companies, and they are very successful too. But they also face challenges in terms of the supply of raw materials. What we hope is that before long, hopefully, we will pave the way for that. For example, in the U.S., some products, in terms of the import of some products from there, we face difficulties, and there the inflation has a broken record, the record of the last 31 years, and in the EU also the highest inflation rates of the last 13 years has been registered, and in Germany this goes the same of the 20th century. And in some countries, even beyond inflation, some products are not found in the market, and this is related with all those intertwined problems. And of course, it is not possible for Turkey not to be impacted by such hiking prices. We are. However, by using our opportunities, the means at hand in a public capital, we try our best not to reflect the global market-related price increases on the livelihoods of our people. A global caused inflation increase is what we talk about right now, and hopefully, as I said before, by the end of the year, we will be tackling away all those opportunists and achieve positive results.
In natural gas and electricity, the government is subsidizing prices. $125 billion of tax revenue has been forfeited, and in order to decrease the cost that reflects on the utility bills of households, and these are policies that are in effect. But on the other hand, there is also a transition from FX rate to inflation. And how do you follow that process? Because the increase in exchange rate, both because of opportunism and because of necessity, sometimes it reflects on prices. Maybe for that reason, it's more important to do import substitution manufacturing.
We have to express one thing about subsidizing, in particular for energy. In natural gas, our prices are too low, even not to compare with the figures in Europe. And this is a truth which the opposition party refuses to see. This is where we are. The figures in Europe are much more expensive at rates that are not even comparable to ours, and even more expensive in energy, in electricity. However, when we supply natural gas and power with such low prices, we see, on the other hand, there are many who do fabricate and manipulate some news. And until when are we going to race against such liars? However, I have a habit. I have not been, indeed, standing against those who lie, do not care for what they say. However, we say that the electricity, the power prices are the half
Quarter of the
of
cost.
its cost, and natural gas by the quarter of its cost. This is what the reality is, as obvious as daylight. But no matter what you say, such people do not believe in that. However, no matter if you believe it or not, the prices are very much obvious for everyone to see. We do supply those utilities with prices that are lower than the cost itself, and we always say that we will not allow anyone to crush our citizens under
So let's
the rates
continue
of
with Idris
inflation.
Kardash. He has a question, I believe, about this.
The minimum wage discussions will begin tomorrow, and for employees, you said they would not be hit by the price increases. You had this promise to them, to workers, and do you have any good news to share? What kind of an adjustment will happen? Can we get some information before tomorrow?
If we declare that, so soon before the negotiations that will start tomorrow, then we will lose, if you will, the seriousness of the set of negotiations that will start as of tomorrow. Let those talks start first tomorrow, then in that trilateral structure where we will also have a commission, the minimum wages will be set, and the minimum wage commission will be making a close study as regards the amounts paid to the people and also the conditions of livelihood, and this is how they identify the figures. And with our minister and also relevant officials, of course, we have talked about that, exchanged opinions as regards the minimum wage as of 2022. 2021, we have earned a lot, and the net minimum wage that a single person could get was only 180 liras when we took office. However, we have increased that figure to 2,825 liras. The minimum wage nominally over the past 19 years has increased by 15.3 folds. And in terms of real ratios, this has translated into an increase of 131%. The fact that the minimum wages increased also is a clear indication that the purchasing power of our citizens has grown. And in line with international indicators, we see that the purchasing power for the minimum wage workers, the index where many European countries and the U.S. are, our country ranked at the 14th. However, in 2020, our country ranked up to the 10th position. We will continue with this policy of increasing the purchasing power, and we will be bringing our country to even higher ranks in the world. And starting with the lower income groups from 2002 on, we have been waging a struggle, exerting efforts to improve the living conditions for all sections of the society. And with this minimum wage increase that we will have, we will be protecting our people against the negative impacts of the high inflation.
When you first became Prime Minister, there was a certain program, and in 2004, when the minimum wage was being set, IMF objected to it, and for the first time and very openly, you defended the minimum wage despite IMF and despite the conditions of the then Turkey. You have increased the minimum wage in a very effective way, and maybe the 2022 conditions require the same level of bravery from you.
Do you doubt that? Such behavior would, of course, befit our character, and we would, with this bravery, act, and also the relevant minister and his delegation, and as well, of course, all other officials, the deputy chairperson of the party and deputies of various provinces, will hold constructive and comprehensive talks, and as a result of the talks that will be held with the unionists, we will be making our decisions before long.
Okay, at this point, I would like to mention this. Now, we talked about employees, but there are also the retired who have some challenges. So what are the new regulations we could expect for the retired in the new term?
Of course, the retired have always been one of the prioritized groups we address, and it will be the case after this point as well. And we have pushed our limits to improve their conditions, and we will stick with that. From the first days of our power on, we have done that. We have increased the pensions of the retired by 75 liras and then 100 liras in second consecutive terms. And in the past, the retired had to collect a certain transaction receipts and whatsoever so that they could receive a tax in return. However, in 2012, we have issued a new law, and this translated into an increase in the pension of many retired. And the Social Security support incentive premium was reduced from 15% to 10% first, and then we abolished that completely. This also reflected as a 15% of increase on pensions. And in the religious holidays, twice a year, we have started delivering bonus of 1,000 for each religious holiday, so the 2,000 totally. And by the end of the year, we paid 25 billion by the end of the year for all the retired. And we also made regulations, and on the basis of files, we increased the pensions to 1,500. With a ratio-oriented and gradual increases on the pensions, also the bonus for or the premium for religious holidays. In real economic terms, this is very important. We have increased the amounts by 44 to more than 300%, and the number of the retired in our country was 6.5 million in 2002, and it has exceeded a figure of 13 million as of now. And the ratio of the pensions to the gross national income was 4.6 by the end of the year, and we forecast that this figure will increase to 6.1%. And as we promised, the sixth term collective bargaining meetings will be also complete by the end of 2021, when the regulation is put into effect. The additional file of 3600 will benefit many sections, many professions, nurses, teachers, and clerics included. And our technical studies as regards that are ongoing, and this will be protecting and improving the social and financial rights of the retired and also those with minimum income. And the Ministry of Social Affairs and Family also closely keep a close track on all relevant developments unfolding, and with all those regulations, all the retired will have a much more peaceful
Ms. Bolzan, let's continue with you.
Energy and renewable energy is a new theme for Turkey. And Turkey has this idea of looking for natural gas. And actually, Turkey walked the talk as well. It first rented ships, and then it purchased it, and then it actually explored natural gas. 540,000 cubic meters was the volume of the natural gas that was explored. It is quite important actually for the future generations, for our children. This has been quite a huge initiative. So we've explored natural gas, but when will we really extract it? Will we have more explorations on the way? Are there any news for that?
Firstly, this matter about the vessels is very crucial. When we took office, we used to operate through leasing. However, we were not paying extra, as I told you during our flight interview that we conducted during our flight. we were saying we would share the natural gas if extracted by 50-50. And there are some drilling activities ongoing. There used to be some drilling or seismic operations ongoing, but no fruitful or concrete achievement was possible. But with Chevron or BP, with Shell, we did those, and a concrete result was not achieved. And they were leaving when they could not see such a positive results. And then we took our own steps forward when Al-Bayrak was the Minister of Economy, Minister of Natural Resources. We procured 2 seismic vessels and then drilling vessels, and the number of the vessels increased to 5.
By that you mean they were very difficult to procure. Nobody was willing to sell.
No, yes, that's the case. That was the case. And now we have our 6th drilling ship. And this drilling ship was a turnkey vessel. Is a turnkey vessel, and it will be delivered in a couple of months, hopefully. And with that, we have other 4. We will have a totally 4 drilling vessels and 2 seismic vessels. And with those vessels, we will operate in the Black Sea and in the Mediterranean. Let's call this Blue Sea. And we will be conducting our operations much more intensively and with much more confidence. And of course, that disturbs some very much. The completion operations before production and all relevant wells are going to be complete. And the land facilities, material supply, and offshore facilities material delivery activities are ongoing for the distribution lines to be submerged to the sea floor. We have plans to start operations in 2023. As of 2023, January, in Sakarya gas field, we target to start the first operation of gas production, and in Sakarya field in 10 wells and the first phase we plan to make a generation of 10 million cubic meters on a daily basis, and depending on the number of the wells to be opened in the second phase, these figures will increase up to 40 million cubic meters. And for more good news to come, our teams are intensively operating in the region with their drilling and exploratory, of course, activities. And the moment we receive the good news, we will share that with our people. Not only will we share it with our people, but as we produce, we will be putting the natural gas to public use.
You made a statement that 21st century would become the century for Turkey, and we can actually consider the exploration of natural gas in this regard as well. When we think about 2000s, there was not such an agenda. There was not really this concept of blue motherland. There was not even an idea of looking for natural gas. So,
and now, thanks be to God, we go beyond seeing the signals of that, but experience that. And it's not easy to own such vessels. Take a look at them. Turk Petrol now owns these vessels. All those seismic activities and drilling activities are ongoing. And when you step on board on these vessels and see with your own eyes the operations, you really feel happy. And now, when we see that natural gas is extracted, you will be feeling that joy, that special joy. And when we extract the natural gas, of course, it will be a special feeling to share it with our people.
1/3 of Turkey's need will be met from here.
Now I'd like to move on to another topic. It has been 1 year since the Izmir earthquake, and 1 year ago we had faced the tragedy of an earthquake once again, and there were 5,740 apartments that you promised, and you already handed over some of them, and you had promised around 300 stores, and also there were 24,000 apartments in Elazığ and Malatya. Yes, Malatya as well. So yes, these were a very important achievement in terms of time, but also you are making important warnings in terms of urban governance, and you are focusing on the importance of transformation. So in connection with the Izmir earthquake and other earthquakes, how do you consider the race against time?
Using this opportunity, I first of all would like to state that I pray for the mercy of God on the souls of all our citizens who passed away due to the heavy storm that took place yesterday. And again, using this opportunity, unfortunately, I would like to state that yesterday a helicopter crashed in Azerbaijan and 14 people lost their lives and 2 are injured, and I extended my best wishes to my brother Ilham Aliyev, and I convey, using this opportunity, convey my condolences to the families of all those who passed away. And likewise, in all these earthquakes that took place in Izmir and in Malatya and Erzincan and Elazığ before. Right after the earthquakes, we started constructing buildings, and as we promised as state authorities with all our institutions, we have stood with our people from search and rescue to rubble removal. All operations were closely followed, and we kept a close track on all those personally. All the ministers, deputies, and Red Crescent and the emergency Natural Disasters and Emergency Case Management Authority, AFAD, coordinated and cooperated. And then we built those buildings, these beautiful buildings, using very special methods, and to address the wounds of the victims of earthquake. In Elazığ and Izmir, we did build more than 35,000 apartments and also 353 workplaces for the citizens who were harmed by the earthquakes. We in Elazığ, in Malatya, built many buildings. In Malatya, more than 6,000 apartments, and not even after a year we started delivering those dwelling houses, those apartments, to their rightful owners. And it made us happy to see our citizens happy when we delivered the keys to those apartments. Seeing the beauty of these places, of course, makes us happy. These are some apartments we built in Bayraklı. These buildings were not built with a vertical architecture. This is Bayraklı district where the Doğanlar dwelling houses are located. Of course, it made everyone happy there. We saw the happiness in the eyes of the people to whom we delivered those keys. And right after Izmir earthquake in Bayraklı, we constructed 391 apartments and 302 workplaces. And in the reserve area, we have acted immediately to build more buildings and workplaces. And in Borna Eridere, with 34 village houses, we, after the Izmir earthquake, made decisions to build more than 5,074 apartments and then deliver them without further ado. And we also have 569 apartments and many workplaces that are totally 741 independent units these are, and we delivered those to the victims of the earthquake.
Okay, so now I would like to move on to our topic of politics. And the elections are coming up, and I know there are a lot of items that our speakers would like to address to you.
You have talked about the Izmir earthquake, and the buildings are really magnificent. All the journalists who have seen them, they like them a lot. And you have talked about the Malatya earthquake. Kılıçdaroğlu, after the Malatya earthquake, they did not even have a Red Crescent tent. He did not even notice the tent that he entered. And you responded to him. You said they don't even see with their eyes. That's what it reminded to me. From that slander coming to the point where we are today, that was a significant process.
Unfortunately, the tent he stepped in was a tent of the Red Crescent, but he did not have eyes to see the crescent of the Red Crescent.
When journalists see you, they ask, and we want to ask the same, because he is trying to bring it to the agenda. They discuss it among themselves as well, and different parts of the opposition, they talk about early elections. Both you and Mr. Bahçeli, as partners of the People's Alliance, you always say that the elections will take place on their scheduled time. What do you think about the early elections, about the assertion of the opposition?
Dear friends, we said it many times before. I don't know how many times before. We said that, and how many more we will. But now that they do not have any other words to utter, probably they keep themselves busy with that. And as Mr. Kılıçdaroğlu said that many times before, even though they like it or not, they should get used to it and accept that idea. Those who do not have any benefits to offer for the people, so to speak, believe that they're making politics by keeping the people busy. Those who make a call for snap elections now finally attempted to make people take to the streets. This is what they're used to doing. However, our people who have common sense against such calls of the marginal groups never cared, and our security authorities started all necessary procedures. I'm a politician who delivers on his promises, and our party is a party that is constituted of units with merits. And hopefully, when our citizens go to the polls in June 2023, they will be making their choices to the favor of AK Party and People's Alliance. AK Party, Nationalist Movement Party, and Great Union Party, BBP, are the parties of the People's Alliance, and we very resolutely continue marching on our path, and we have no compromises on our decisiveness. And hopefully in June 2023, our nation will be teaching the necessary lesson to the relevant people.
Mr. President, now the president of CHP has many statements lately that have been quite striking. Let's hear those.
So the conversation with President Erdoğan moving on to the opposition. Let's bring in Andrew Hopkins. Andrew, just a quick comment on the opposition and their call for early elections in Turkey.
Yeah, they've been making this call for a few weeks now. I think obviously wanting to make some capital out of the situation of the economy at the moment and trying to use it for their benefit and for to encourage voters to come to their side, really, as in their calls for this election. But really, in the last few weeks, the Turkish president has said there aren't going to be early elections. It's going to happen in 2023, which is when they're scheduled to happen. They can be called earlier, of course, but he says there's no plans for that to happen at all. So this is what is being discussed here. It's more sort of the internal politics of Turkey at the moment and how that's going to reflect in when they're going to go to elections.
So we heard the statements of Kılıçdaroğlu. Let's continue with you, Mrs. Bozdoğan.
So, CHP head of CHP made many remarks on making amends in the recent days, and recently he made a statement about AK Party and AK Party's electorate. And he delivered the following remarks. These are non-nationals, and those who support them are people who aren't nationalistic. I wonder how you would like to comment on that. Experts who are in the discourse analysis, they wonder the general logic and understanding behind it, because AK Party actually represents 52% of the voters, and why would a politician actually come up with such an idea?
Let me speak very clearly and frankly. He said to the people of the country, they voted for AK Party and supported Erdoğan. And using this word of unofficial in the votes cast is disgrace, and you then will call the 52% of this country unofficial and then set on a journey of campaign. This shows how insincere the amends that the CHP leader attempted to make. Let him do that, but even though the files of injustice that stand piled up in front of them will not let them do it, because there are many victims left behind the mindset of CHP that it will take them a long time to write off their debts. And they should first ask for the forgiveness of 146 Azerbaijani brothers and sisters. And they should do the same for that in 1944, 146 Azerbaijani brothers and sisters took refuge, asylum in Turkey, fleeing from the oppression of Russia. And the CHP of the time delivered those 146 Azerbaijani brothers and sisters to the oppression of Stalin. And our Azerbaijani brothers and sisters were slaughtered when they were crossing over Barani Bridge. And when they were crossing the bridge, what did they say? Do you remember? They said, "Do not let them kill us, but you kill us." There's this folk music, a folkloric song, the lyrics of which says, "My own brother sold me out," it says. And this is what the CHP is. And how will they be making amends or write off their debts? Let's assume that they have done that. But what about the oppressed, downtrodden Syrians, Africans, Libyans? How will they get the forgiveness or blessings of those people? The more we stand with the oppressed, the more we supply medical or financial assistance to the oppressed or the downtrodden, the more out loudly they stood against us. And I have to very clearly say, Mr. Kemal,
eski CHP'li bakanların mağdur ettiği kişilerden helalliğin nasıl alacak?
have you ever thought how you will be asking for the forgiveness of those people who were in official positions and removed from their chairs unrighteously? And do you know how you will ask for the blessings of the citizens who could not even get the body of their children from the morgues of the hospitals just because they could not afford? The CHP mentality that plays to the popular has fallen very late to ask for the blessings or the forgiveness of many sections of the society. However, the people of such a CHP mentality always and always fall short to ask for that amends, and it now has been the same. The elections, Mr. Kemal, will be held in June 2023. There's too much time still left for it.
Mr. President, now the fight against terrorism is another important topic of our country, and we never found the support from our friends, our allies from the West about this. And there was a very important documentary made by TRT called Factory, and it resonated across the world as well. Now, Lafarge, as you know, they are supporting, they are a cement manufacturer and they are supporting terrorism. And it has been proven by documents that they are providing this support with the intelligence of France. And it was also revealed that Macron supported them as well. And this documentary was broadcast on TRT News, TRT World, and TRT Arabic in two parts, and we have a video about that, and then we will address some questions to you.
The TRT World team meticulously examined 500,000 documents over 2 years. They interviewed witnesses and defendants. The result of the investigation will create waves in France. TRT World's documentary Factory reveals the dirty dealings between cement companies, Lafarge, French intelligence operatives, and terrorist organizations. Between 2012 and 2016, French cement giant Lafarge transferred millions of dollars to Daesh and the YPG and PKK terrorist organizations in Syria. YPG-PKK took the lion's share, but importantly, all this took place with the knowledge and approval of French intelligence. French government officials and the judiciary covered up the dealings for a long time. The European Union has also turned a blind eye. It is alleged that French intelligence uses Lafarge as a cover. The facts are contained within the documents. It turns out that the world's largest cement company finances terrorist organizations. And it all points out to one prominent individual, Emmanuel Macron, who at the time was Minister of the Economy and responsible for assets abroad. The General Director of Enterprises, who was accountable to Macron at the time, is mentioned frequently in the documents. Macron knew that the company financed Daesh and the YPG-PKK terrorist organizations, as well as groups affiliated with Al-Qaeda, while Daesh was carrying out attacks in France. Everything is clear in the documentation. The documentary Factory was broadcast on TRT Haber, TRT World and TRT Arabic channels on the 6th anniversary of the Paris attacks, the murder of 130 people by Daesh, supported by Lafarge. TRT World's documentary has had a significant impact on the public.
Yes, we can see how Turkey is battling many dirty traps in the fight against terrorism. And I believe you have some questions, sir.
Yes, this documentary is very important, Mr. President. These documents and also the righteousness of the discourses of the government, and these documents show the hypocrisy of the West. And you also say that you support financially the terror groups, and this will come back striking at you. And this is probably taking place with the money provided by Lafarge, and many people lost their lives because of that. And terror somehow come back at them. And you expressed that hypocrisy and the political support, and on the other hand, some financial support through tunnels. They built also many tunnels. So in the face of such hypocrisy and also the loneliness Turkey is pushed towards, what do you say about that, Mr. President?
First of all, I should congratulate TRT for this successful work about how terror groups receive support, and the terror groups which are fed by them, how they go back and hit the countries that support them. This is an important work that shows this to the whole world. We are the country which is hit the most by the negative outcomes of the Syrian war. This is evident. The Syrian people, the territorial integrity of the country, and terror which threatens our own national security is maybe one of the most important ones of these outcomes. One of the reasons of the terror problem in Syria is the foreign support that is extended to terror groups. In the pretense of the fight against Daesh, some countries are giving support to terror groups like PKK or YPG. PKK and YPG, their terrorist identity cannot be changed by giving them different names and cannot be shown as legitimate. By claiming to fight against Daesh, giving support to PKK and YPG, there are those who give support to them, and we are the only coalition and NATO country which fought against Daesh face-to-face in the field, and we have eliminated more than 4,000 Daesh terrorists. And we are exposed to Daesh terrorism at least as much as they did. From time to time, there are some baseless claims about Daesh and our country, but they should first look at their own attitude. The Lafarge company's activities which are connected to Daesh are also have been discovered by the French judiciary, and the French judiciary made a decision, a ruling on it. And do we need any other proof, any other evidence than that? And of course, Lafarge's support to terror groups. Because of that support, there are some tunnels dug in those areas, and there are different chambers inside those tunnels. With all those, the underground formations there have all been possible thanks to Lafarge's support. I have expressed to Macron himself as well. I said, you are talking about these things, but what about Lafarge? As you can see, Lafarge is giving support to PKK, PYD, and YPG. Such terror groups are able to run some activities. And he acted like he had no information about it, or he hadn't heard about it. And this way, he tried to evade. And this is how they act. Unfortunately, they are hypocrites. One way or another, thankfully, our troops, our soldiers, have fought bravely there, and they were able to bury them underground. We have lost some martyrs, yes, but hopefully they will be hosted in heaven, and they will be neighbors to our Prophet. All of their all the lost, I wish God's mercy on their souls and condolences to their families. But they are the heroes of a very important fight.
And it's not only a discourse that the vengeance will be taken. And there's this red bulletin about a Daesh terrorist and another terrorist that gave instructions for Ankara attack has now been neutralized. And these are some steps that show that Turkey uses high capacity to neutralize all attacks and terrorists. And these are some messages given forward.
At this point, we also know that Turkey has a very active role in foreign policy, and there are some countries that we are trying to develop good relations with. So let's hear your question, sir.
There are dimensions of economy, strategy, and politics. This goes in particular for the Gulf countries. The Crown Prince of Abu Dhabi, of the United Arab Emirates, and his visit to Turkey. The relations are being reconstructed, and there is also a reflection of that towards Egypt. And in the Eastern Mediterranean, there are some plots ongoing in the triangle of Greece, Israel, and Egypt. However, the initiatives taken here show that there is a more foreign policy-oriented axis that Turkey follows. There are some claims put forward, and some chase after it as if it is a truth. And the other day, the CHP leader said that certain promises were given to the Crown Prince and made allegations that certain benefits were offered. And there were some other claims that came into. How would you like to comment on those allegations, Mr. President?
The leadership of CHP or its leader, they have nothing else other than their lies that they feed from. Our talks, as you know, they started with Qatar, and their claims were not received well. We did not sell BMC to Qatar. BMC is only Qatar only became a partner, a shareholder to BMC, which is 49% to 51% us. And with this partnership, what we manufacture in selling our production to certain markets with their positive input as well. The factory in Arifiye will also be renovated, will be retrofitted, and this partnership played an important role in making this possible. With the Abu Dhabi administration, we have taken a historic step. $11 billion of pre-agreement has been made. Some other steps have been taken as well. And with the bilateral talks that we have had, around February, if possible, I will have a return visit. But in the meantime, our Minister of Foreign Affairs, as well as our intelligence president, they will have a visit as well. And together with all these visits, with UAE, our process will hopefully progress much more. When we are not getting on well, CHP tries to use that as an argument. And when we do the opposite, when we start taking steps together, in that case, CHP does the opposite. They question why we have made peace, and they try to bring arguments for themselves from there. But no matter what you do, we will improve our relations with all of them, hopefully. Because this is what we do, and as they see, even if they go mad, and now hopefully in the first half of February I will be there, and in addition to that, with Bahrain, another country of the region, they may be visiting us. They will come here and visit us, and we will have talks with them, and our relations with Sud we will be trying to improve those relations as well. With Egypt, we continue at the ministerial level, and in the future there will be developments. There may be developments in that area as well, because the people of all these regions, they have a unique connection with each other. We share an old history that we have built together. We have a shared history with Gulf countries. We still have a very serious cooperation potential. Our economies complete each other, and new cooperation projects based on mutual benefit hopefully will be used as an opportunity for shared investment.
Mr. President, now we are going to take you back in time. We have a video from the interviews you had with TRT. Let's have a look at that.
Let's bring in TRT World's editor-at-large, Yusuf Erim. So the conversation, Yusuf, turning to foreign policy, Turkey and its relationship with the Gulf state of the United Arab Emirates. Just talk us through that, because that was underlined by the visit recently of the Crown Prince of Abu Dhabi.
Yes, it was a very important visit by the Crown Prince of Abu Dhabi, and the Turkish president calling it a historic step, a new page in relations between Turkey and the United Arab Emirates. And he also touched upon the Turkish foreign minister set to visit Abu Dhabi as well, December 15th, and then the Turkish president himself paying a return visit to Abu Dhabi also in February. And within the scope of relations, not only with the UAE, but also with other Gulf states and the Arab world, the Turkish president also talked about relations with Bahrain and a possible reconciliation progress that could take place with Egypt as well. Egypt, another country that's very, very important to Turkey geopolitically, and relations have been very cold since 2013, since the coup against former Egyptian President Mohamed Morsi. But it seems that there are some type of low-level correspondence right now that are building and working up towards maybe a possible foreign ministry or higher level diplomatic relations going forward. So that's developments that we're going to have to be watching very, very closely as Turkey's working to reconcile its differences, not only with the UAE, which is moving forward very, very positively, but also other Gulf states as well, like Saudi Arabia, Bahrain, and then again, Egypt onwards.
At large, as we look at some pictures of a very young Mr. Erdoğan speaking to TRT a couple of decades ago. Let's go back to Ankara.
Did it make you emotional?
I have gotten older.
Time flies. Unfortunately, it's the case for all of us.
But your style and the words seem the same.
And you,
Is it the same?
are you saying you are moving forward with the same determination?
I mean, the society, the public, as long as they continue giving this answer, that keeps you going, that keeps you alive. This week, as you know, we were visiting Izmir, and Izmir we have handed over the apartments that were completed, and then we progressed to Menemen district. And when we did that, on both ends of the street, from the balconies of buildings, people were throwing down flowers and we have entered the square, but until we did so, we had a few kilometers of road, and once we arrived at the square, it was packed, it was full of people. According to what the police said, close to 20 to 25,000 people were present there. There was a lot of enthusiasm, a lot of excitement, which was unique. And in the face of such enthusiasm, of course, you have to respond in the same fashion. Especially after that, we had an event with persons with disabilities. As you know, Metin Şentürk, he joined us with his instrument, and at the same event, we had people with visual disabilities or hearing disabilities. We listened to the songs that they sang, and we shared their joy. I participated from time to time, and of course, all these songs that they sing, if we don't join in, it wouldn't work, because they give you that excitement, that enthusiasm. And as I always say, we are in love with our nation. As I always repeat, as poet Neşet Ertaş said, when you work in love, you don't get tired.
Well, the interview on the aircraft, and I had the chance to witness, or we had the chance to witness, the way you act as a politician from time to time. So all the topics and the themes that you touched upon, among them you also have time for stories of people, like, for example, a piano of a disabled person, for example. And you talk about that, and these actually occupy a place in your life. You talk to them, you call them. How do you really handle this?
If we are in this position, as long as we occupy this position, we have to take up the issues of those who suffer from certain problems. For instance, that evening, we had a young girl. We had 4 siblings, and they could not see. They were sitting right next to us in Konya.
The one who studied law?
No, this was a different person. She had memorized the whole Quran, and the other one, he had a different request.
Probably they were very motivated.
They said, we don't have a home. I said, okay, young daughter, we will solve that problem. And today, I asked the local authority and the Konya, they talked to the Konya mayor, and they said, okay, we will solve this problem, have no worries, they said. And that way, that problem has been solved. And the other sibling who was studying law, she had a different issue, which we have also solved.
We would like to thank our guests. We have reached the end of our program. Mrs. Bozdoğan, Mr. Kardaş, Mr. Müderrisoğlu, and Mr. President, thank you for responding to our question and hosting us here.
I thank all of you as well. This has been great, a great chat, and people watching us on different corners of our country, I send my very cordial greetings, my love and my respect to all of them.
Dear viewers, we have reached the end of our President's special broadcast. Good night.
So you've been listening to an exclusive interview by President Erdoğan, the Turkish president, speaking to TRT World.